Have you ever been injured but not told anyone? It changed the course of my future, but in a good way. I started tumbling classes when I was barely 2 years old and later became a competitive gymnast. By 5th grade, my parents and I were discussing me going to college on a gymnastics scholarship. I thought I was headed for UCLA Gymnastics. In 2014, I placed second in the state of California, represented my state at nationals, and placed 10th in the all-around. Then 2 months later, I fractured my ankle on a crash beam landing. I didn't say anything, naively thinking it was minor, but 2 months later I was told I needed to be on crutches for 6 months because I had repeatedly damaged that area by continuing to tumble. Lo and behold, that was the end of my career in gymnastics. 6 months isn't a long time in the scheme of things for an athlete, but I started my recovery at the same time I started middle school at an advanced STEM school in puberty. My body and my future goals were different when I was given the all-clear to practice. So I decided to retire my leotard and focus on nerdy science stuff instead. My future is still looking at Los Angeles, but more merit scholar to USC type stuff. I'm happy though. Gymnastics will always hold a special place in my heart, and I look forward to the Summer Olympics when we can finally have that. Second story. I was cruising northbound 131 in Paw Paw County, Michigan, one day at about 2 in the afternoon. Normally, it is a 70 miles per hour highway, but this day, it was snowing quite heavily, and all of us on the road had decided that 35 miles per hour was about as fast as we dared go. Nobody was in the left-hand lane, except one lone 18-wheeler, who had apparently decided we were all wussies. I saw him coming in my rear view, and as he was starting to pass me at 65 miles per hour or so, he saw up ahead a car that had spun out into his lane. He hit the brakes, and the rear of his truck jackknifed into me. It was like I was a hockey puck, and he was the stick. Anyway, the resulting slap shot straightened out his truck, and he kept on going. He got the better of the deal, as I was the newest occupant of the cornfield that we were driving past. All the glass on the driver's side of my Windstar van shattered, and the pieces were either on the road or in the van or in me. My leather jacket was torn, and I had some cuts, bruises, but that was about it. All of the damage on me and the van was contained to our left sides. That will be important in a minute. When the state trooper arrived, he asked if I wanted the van towed or if I wanted to drive it. The van was technically drive-able even with the missing glass and a huge crease in the sheet metal down the entire side, which actually totaled it. But again, it was still drive-able. I was only an hour from home, so I elected to drive. It was a cold, miserable trip, and when I got home, I looked up the driveway and saw that the wife was stuck in the driveway. So I parked down at the road with the good side of the van showing and helped shovel her out, all the while only letting her see my good side. She had already launched into what a bad day she had had, and I saw a very humorous opportunity in the offing. So I let her tell me all about her awful day, and when she finally asked about mine, I drove the van up to the house and let her see the bad side of it and me. She was shocked, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but I know that we all learned and agreed that a bad day is a relative thing. Third story. I was bitten by a dog many years ago. I was about 8 years old at the time. I wasn't supposed to leave the house, but I snuck out to play with my friend and neighbor John. While we were out within the yard, another of my neighbors messed up and was about to receive a caning from his aunt. She didn't have a cane there though, so she asked us to find appropriate sticks for the caning. We went out into the street in search of a cane. There was an abandoned, uncompleted building on the street which was overgrown with weeds where we thought we'd get one. We went in, saw a few good candidates, and got down to selecting. Turns out there was a homeless person squatting in the building, and he didn't like our intrusion. He came charging into the room we were in, cursing. So we dropped the candidates we were holding, and we fled through a window immediately. The window opened into a different street, and just there, At the gate of the house on the opposite side of the street, facing the window, lay 2 German Shepherd dogs. They noticed our escape. I guess their prey drives kicked in, and they chased us right away. I ran, panicking and screaming, away from the dogs as fast as I could, but John was faster. The dogs got to me just as I was about to turn a corner. John had turned already and was accelerating away when I felt one of the dogs lunge into my back, knocking me down. Then I felt its teeth in my behind. I screamed even louder, expecting the end, and to my surprise the dog let go. The second dog just stood by barking at me. John stood watching from a distance. The dogs left after a short while, so I got up to check myself a bit for the damage. There were holes in my shorts where the dog bit me, but I wasn't in much pain. We made our way home, where I snuck back inside, avoiding my mum and heading straight to the bathroom to inspect my bum properly and take a shower. The injuries didn't look too bad to me. In any event, I wasn't going to tell my mum that I snuck out the house, left the compound, went into an abandoned building, got chased by a homeless man, then got chased and bitten by dogs. I didn't know about rabies or infections at the time, so after the shower, I simply went to bed. Luckily, the injury healed nicely without complications. 4th story. I used to compete in Taekwondo competitions in high school. In one competition, I was about to do a high kick to the head against my opponent. At that moment, she blocked with her elbow, and her elbow made contact with the side of my foot, around the bunion area. I have no idea what happened, but I literally felt something, a bone, or I don't know what, in my foot move inwards. It was so painful, but I kept going as I wanted to win, and the pain was fueling my competitiveness. In the end, I ended up losing balance and fell. I also lost the competition. My coach kept having to ask me if I was okay, and the idiot I was back then, I kept saying I was. After the competition, I couldn't step on that foot for almost 2 months and was walking around with a very apparent limp. Eventually, I got better, but I wish I had gone to the doctor then, because almost 10 years later, I still think there is something slightly off about my balance. 5th story. I was working at Walmart as a cashier right after Thanksgiving. It wasn't what we called Blitz, now called Black Friday, but a few days after. Still pretty busy with Christmas shoppers. I was on the express lane, and there were tons of people in my line, all the way backed up to the candy aisle. And that was only as far as I could see. So of course I'm rushing to get things done. And of course more people than not had more than 10 items in their carts. How I hated those people when we were super busy like that. Anyway, as I was checking out this one customer, he was chatting with people in line, and he was grabbing bags from me as they were getting filled up. I went to double bag his milk because they always break if you don't, and I had a good grip on it, and he yanked. I heard a pop in my shoulder and thought he dislocated it, but was too busy to deal with it at that moment. It hurt like no one's business. I rubbed it while he was paying and rotated it some. It hurt so badly. As soon as we slowed down, I called a CSM over to tell them what happened, and they asked if I wanted to go to the doctor. At that time, I thought it was no big deal, and told them, nah, my shift is almost over, let's just see how it feels tomorrow. Next day, my hand felt numb, so I told them I should go to the doctor. They took me to the doctor, who was too busy to see me. They talked me out of going to the ER. I didn't see a doctor for 3 days after the fact. Turns out I had a broken clavicle. 1 month later, released from the doctor. 1 month after that, fired. So my unlikely sounding injury broke my collarbone with a gallon of milk. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.